I just want to go ahead and share a few things about flipped learning, what it is, and give you some insight into the benefits of it. We're all familiar with the traditional form of teaching in which a teacher stands in front of the room, dispenses information to the students. But the students feel like they're understanding it in class, and a lot of times then they end up going home, trying to do the material themselves, and realize they don't truly understand it, often get frustrated, and are not able to complete the work. In a typical lesson where you are lecturing, typically the students are bored, and you as a teacher or professor are bored. However, with all the videos on the internet, on YouTube, and other sources, learning is really changing. Students, and even as adults and professionals, we're able to learn when we want. We can go ahead and go onto YouTube, search for something we want, watch a video, and then we're like, cool. If needed, we can pause and rewind and watch it multiple times. Learning is really, or learning how to do something for our students, this is kind of their first reaction. If they want to learn how to do something for themselves, just go to YouTube. We really have school backwards. We've been having students in our classrooms with us, the teacher, the expert, doing the easy part of the learning, learning about the material. And then we've been sending them home by themselves to really do the hard part of the learning, the actual doing the material and working out and making deep sense of it. So it's time for a change. A change that is very beneficial is the flipped classroom. So what is the flipped classroom? For the most part, it's where students watch and learn material before class starts, and then they spend class time applying that knowledge and making sense of it, where there are peers and the teacher there to assist them. The traditional flipped classroom is where students watch and learn the material prior to class, and then they come to class and spend class time practicing and applying that material and then take an assessment. The only change between the traditional flipped and normal lecture class is just the lecture and homework are flip-flopped. But teachers are often like, what do I do if I don't lecture? Or you might be asking yourself this question. Well, they don't need me for lecture. They need me for all these other things, which are higher level thinking and where students often struggle and need that assistance and that one-on-one coaching. Which leads us to the idea of the flipped classroom versus flipped learning. What I've just been sharing with you is really the flipped classroom. Flipped learning. Well, what is flipped learning? Well, Pearson Education and the Flipped Learning Network came up with the 4 pillars of flipped learning. The first pillar is flexible environment, meaning you might actually have to change the physical setup of your room and or allow students to work ahead or at their own pace. Maybe even creating a flexible environment in which students are able to learn when or choose when and where they want to learn. The learning culture. In other words, there's a deliberate shift from the teacher-centered classroom to the student-centered classroom. Students are actively involved in the formation of knowledge. With intentional content, the teacher needs to maximize the class time in order to adopt various instructional methods, such as active learning strategies like peer instruction, problem-based learning, or flip mastery. And then the role of the professional educator is really even more important in a flipped environment than in a traditional one. In a flipped environment, the teacher needs to be with the students during that class time, continuously observing the students, providing them with relevant feedback in the moment, and assessing their work. Well, flipped learning first started for Aaron Sams and John Bergman, the pioneers of the flipped classroom, when they went to their second version of the flipped classroom, which is the flipped mastery, in which students are all working at their own pace on the topics for their chemistry class. It can actually be done in any subject area or course, but theirs happened to be chemistry. The students would learn the material, practice it, apply it, do the material in class, take an assessment on it. If they got above 80% on that assessment, they're able to move on to the next topic and keep working. If they earned less than 80% on that assessment, then they had to go back and do some remediation. The second iteration of the flipped classroom for Ramsey Musallam and Troy Cochran was Explore, Flip, and Apply, where students develop some kind of knowledge about the material before they receive any direct instruction from the teacher, meaning the flip part. And then after that direct instruction, then they continue to apply that material. And then there's the problem-based learning. Students explore, do some learning, and then they start creating or working on a big project. So suppose a student needed to create a fuel cell. They were going ahead and getting some background information, starting to develop and design their fuel cell, but they get to a point where they actually have to balance chemical equations. So to learn how to balance chemical equations, a student would then just go ahead and watch a video from their teacher on balancing chemical equations, do some problems with that, understand it, then they could go back to creating that fuel cell. The second iteration for me at Byron High School was the peer instruction flipped learning model. Students still receive that direct instruction outside of class, but then they come to class and I put some key questions over the material up on the board. They answer it themselves. Then they start discussing it with their peers. Sometimes it's even arguing and debating. And then I quickly cover the questions after they've tried to discuss and convince the peers of what their answer is, followed by time to work on their problems and apply it, and then still take an assessment. So for the most part, that's an introduction to what flipped learning is all about.